What's up, everybody? JamZel's, Ask and Tell. Have Jamila today. She's actually free, and she actually likes how she looks.
Praise the Lord, I'm free.
And today we're gonna address a question that we actually get all the time so far. Can your personality type, speaking of Myers-Briggs, of course, can your Myers-Briggs personality type change? The answer is no. No, 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 no.
No, 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 no.
No.
No, no. No.
No.
No, 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 no.
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 No. Your MBTI type cannot change.
Go ahead.
Now, disclaimer, we are not saying that you as a person, as an individual, are unable to change. But we'd rather say that it's not that your personality type changes, but you as a person develop. Your personality type develops. And most people who claim that their personality type has changed is because obviously, well, it's obvious to us that they're not aware of the underlying factors of personality type, which I always express, the cognitive functions. Every personality type has 4 cognitive functions. And we're not talking about the letters like E, F, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about actual functions that each personality type carries out, such as extroverted thinking, which can even be a trait in introverts. And so when you as a personality type start to develop and mature these functions, and you start to operate in different ways that could have you resemble a different personality type, but at the core you're still your same personality type. You're still underneath that umbrella.
Oh wait, I forgot to think of something to say.
You can give examples.
We're just
too.
talking about that. We're not talking about how people think they have multi-personality disorder.
Oh, we can address as many as we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, you are not an ambivert. Say it with me. I am not an ambivert.
I'm not an ambivert, but
No.
I'm an extrovert, but I also like alone time. I like to spend time by myself sometimes, and it depends on who I'm around. You know, I think that I can be very outgoing at certain points, and sometimes I do like to stay by myself.
Check this out. You know what that makes you?
What is
a
that
human being.
I thought I was a snowflake.
No, you're not. Sorry. Here's the thing. Like Denzel was talking about cognitive functions. You have your dominant and you have your auxiliary. And
First function, second function, dominant, auxiliary, and then the last 2, tertiary and inferior. We'll get into that in some other video.
yeah, so the first 2 are always going to be opposite. So the top one is going to be extrovert and the second one is going to be introvert, or the top one's going to be introvert, the auxiliary is going to be extrovert. So there's dominant, like, yeah, you can be outgoing, but that doesn't make you an extrovert. Yeah, you can hate people and you need to be alone to recharge, all of that, but that doesn't mean that you're an introvert. That just means that you're either a well-rounded person, or you need to learn to have social skills, or you're a well-rounded person and you need to learn to be by yourself and recharge and focus and things like that, or whatever you need to do.
Exactly. So even in that case, in stating that someone such as an INTJ, as they get older, as they start to develop, so an INTJ's cognitive functions, and you guys can Google this, or I'll put some links in the description, but their cognitive function stack is introverted intuition, extroverted thinking. So those top 2 are their strongest thing, but their first thing that they live in, their flow state is introverted intuition. And then their co-pilot, their auxiliary, is extroverted thinking. And then the last two, I just can't remember at the moment. Introverted thinking. I think they have introverted sensing. Well, whatever. But we're going to focus on the top two. Now, the opposite, ENTJ, instead of introverted intuition first, they're going to have extroverted thinking first. And their second function is going to be introverted intuition. But when they develop that second function, and it becomes more well-rounded with their first function, then they can start to resemble an INTJ. And when an INTJ develops their extroverted thinking, they can start to resemble an ENTJ. However, that doesn't mean that the INTJ has now become an ENTJ or an ENTJ has now become an INTJ. Just like Jamila said, it just now makes you more well-rounded, but you are not equal on both. You will never be equal. You will never be as dominant, as good with your intuition, in flow with your intuition, your introverted intuition, as an INTJ will be, and you will never, an INTJ will never be in flow with their extroverted thinking as an ENTJ would be, because God just wired us in a way where we naturally are in flow with these things, and you cannot change that. And so to say that, oh, I've changed type and now I'm not, like, now I'm an introvert or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean that now all of a sudden you really are an introvert. It just means that you have developed your introverted function, but you are still an extrovert, and the same vice versa. You cannot, if you're an introvert now, you're an extrovert. No, you really just develop that second function, that extroverted function. Hopefully that makes sense.
And another thing, speaking about that doesn't just have to do with introvert, extrovert. You can't be, oh, I'm kind of a sensor and I'm also intuitive. No, you're one or the other. You can't be both.
Yeah. One thing you should know is that everybody has intuition and everybody has sensing. So I guess one example would be for the ESFP. ESFPs have extroverted sensing. Actually, we'll use the ESFJ. ESFJs have extroverted feeling as their dominant function. And then they have introverted sensing as their auxiliary function. And then third, they have extroverted intuition. And then lastly, they have introverted thinking. So the third and fourth one, like I said, are not nearly as strong as the first two. So you can see, we usually like to use a car model. And on my blog site, I've created one for the ENFJ. But for this part, you can see the dominant and the auxiliary basically as the adults. So the mom and dad of the car. Dad's driving the car, and then mom probably has the map or whatever. And then the back seat, the third function is 10 years old, is a 10-year-old, and then the last function is a 3-year-old. So for the ESFJ, extroverted feeling is driving the car. That's their strongest one. That's the one that's in control. And then introverted sensing is the one that's sitting in the passenger seat. And next, they have the 10-year-old in the back seat, right behind introverted sensing, and that's extroverted intuition. That's still intuition, and it's still fairly strong. A 10-year-old is still capable of saying profound things, but that's not going to be somebody that you're going to have driving the car or handling the map in the passenger seat all the time. That's more of somebody that you're going to go to, depending on your comfortability with. And that 10-year-old will not, for the sake of this analogy, will not ever grow to become as strong as your dominant and auxiliary functions. That's just how God created you, and we should own that. But that does not mean that you can now become an intuitive or you can now become a sensor. Just learn to develop things that you actually do have and understand the controls, your cognitive functions of what you actually do have, and enhance that.
Also, if you're not really familiar with your personality type, and all you know is like the letters, and you kind of know what the letters mean, it's easy to be like, I'm not judgmental, or oh no, I'm not a feeler. I don't. That's really like not the point. It's
I
really
don't cry
important.
every day.
Yeah, it's really important to like look into the cognitive functions and understand what those are, and understand that way more than like what the letters are. Cause I mean, you can read something like Denzel, for example. he's an ENFJ, and I don't know if that was a secret, but he's an ENFJ, and he's like, so what is intuition? And I was like, well, I mean, it means that you're not sensing. And so he's like, I'm not sensible. I don't get it. So, like, really look into, like, what the letters mean and maybe, like, what your type's behavior is, but also then, like, dig deeper into the cognitive functions.
Right, because there's a difference, even so there's two different intuitions and there's two different sensings. There's a difference between extroverted sensing and introverted sensing. And just because you're an extrovert does not mean that you have extroverted sensing. And just because you're an introvert does not mean that you have introverted sensing. So that's why it's so important that you focus on the functions and you learn what those functions actually are. And I feel like the last disclaimer that we're going to throw into this video is that I find it very interesting that Carl Jung himself, the person who actually created the cognitive function theory that Myers-Briggs actually pulled off of, Carl Jung himself did not even believe in the psychometric test, but rather he believed in talking to people so that he could figure out their personality type. And I believe that this is way more effective as well. For those of you who have read my blog, when I took the test, I got the wrong results 3 times. And I didn't know anything about personality types. In fact, I thought that personality typing was stupid. Jamila was sending me the link. David and her were actually interested in it. And I was just like, this is whatever. Especially when I got my first results. I got ESTJ. It was probably like 55% accurate. I was like, yeah, okay. And then I got ESFJ. And I was like, okay, this actually does sound like me, but not enough for me to like obsess over. And then I get the actual type. Like her older brother, who never took the test, but he told Jamila her personality type, and then he not only told her that, but he told her mine, and she looked it up. Then she tells me about it, and I look it up, and I'm like, what? How does this know me without even knowing me? And I had no idea that type even existed, but I never got that from the test. So that just goes to show how important it is that be open to the fact that your test results are probably wrong. Just be open to that. And I just want to end it with saying that the swan and the eagle are both extremely important. They're both beautiful in their own ways. But the swan should never envy the eagle, and the eagle should never envy the swan. They should just try their very best to be the best they can be. Oh, and I think one last thing would be know that at the end of the day, we both know that you are not your personality type. You are not defined by that. I'm not the same person as Martin Luther King was. I'm not Oprah Winfrey or Nelson Mandela reincarnated. She is not Michael Jackson reincarnated, even though she may believe that. You know, just because we have the same personality type does not mean that we are exactly that person, or, oh, we know exactly how everybody's going to act like. No, it's just a way for us to help understand each other more, and it's a way for us to help understand ourselves more so that we can develop those functions, we can enhance those abilities that we have, we can work better as a group to create that harmony, and that's basically about it, right?
Yeah, and just like not trying to box people.
Yeah.
We're not trying to box you. We don't box each other. If we boxed each other, then Denzel would be looking at any girl who's ISFP like, I think I should go with her. Yeah. I mean, she's basically like Jamila, so what could be wrong? No.
We are so clear on that fact that everybody is an individual. My younger sister, she's an ENFP, and although I can see similarities between her and other ENFPs that I know for certain that, oh, y'all, like, my younger sister is still Dante at the end of the day. And so we are not in any way trying to claim that your personality type is you or defines you, but rather it explains how your mind works if you actually learn about the cognitive functions and not just the behavior. That's why it's so much better to learn about cognitive functions and not the behavior, because then you learn how the controls actually work instead of, oh, these are just what the controls are. And everybody who is even in your personality type, they use those controls differently, but you all have been given the same controls. But you as an individual, you'll use the controls differently than another person who's given the same controls, and that's what makes you you. Done.